How are you? Welcome to our next installment of EPM Chronicles and Confessions. We have Sonir Bekir here. Sonir, nice to meet you. Could you please explain a bit more about yourself and your EPM journey?
Sure. Nice to meet you too, Tim. My name's Sonir Bekir. I'm the guy that started the company that's currently called Inlumi. Previously, it was Infratects. And I'm actually more of an IT solutions architect than I am an EPM functional consultant.
Yes, yes.
My Hyperion journey, and that Hyperion name yet again, started with Hyperion Enterprise at 1999 in Fortis. And when I first came across that software and realized how tricky it was to get operating in a multinational business, I like the challenge of it. I like the fact that Hyperion didn't really know themselves, in fact, how to get most of the stuff working in interesting configurations, and especially when they sort of shifted to HFM and all of the other products that make up what we know as EPM suite today. They really didn't have any clue about how to properly implement it. So I found a good niche for me to be able to start up working in EPM. And actually, it was Part 8 Consulting, another blast from the past as far as companies are concerned,
Mhm.
who actually approached me to start up a joint venture and actually make sure that all of their IT implementations on their projects went well. And so that was really the start of my work, my EPM world, let's say. What else? Yeah, apart from that, obviously there was that interesting transition time when Oracle bought Hyperion in 2007.
Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest thing that forced me to think about the future and how it is that Infratects could grow and prosper. And actually, it was the fallout where Oracle were getting rid of a lot of their staff, a lot of their experienced consulting staff, that gave me the spur, let's say, to open up in UK, Finland, Spain. I opened up in Australia for personal reasons, so that was easy enough, and then opened up in the US in 2014. And then in 2017, another blast from the past, I merged with Sukaba to form what is now Inlumi. So that gave us Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. And then in 2020, it was all sold to private equity. So that's
Wow.
my 20-year journey.
Fantastic story. Fantastic. No, it's great. This is a bit of a quirky question because I ask this to everyone coming to a podcast, and they don't really outside this industry, nobody really understands what I do, especially my
Yeah,
mum.
yeah.
So, have you had any kind of misconceptions when you've tried to explain what actually you do to someone? Any interesting misconceptions in terms of what you actually do?
I haven't had too many misconceptions. What I have had is the ability or the need to explain to people what I do in simple terms. And so
Yeah.
my typical explanation was actually, I mean, depending on the level of finance experience, I'd either turn around and say to somebody that I implemented Excel on steroids,
Ah, yeah.
or or I used to then specify accounting systems. So implementing Exact or Sage or MyOb or
Oh,
Quicken
yeah.
or whatever on steroids as well. And then typically ended up explaining what consolidation was to most of them because that seemed to be the big thing that nobody knew anything about outside of EPM.
Sure, sure. I know, can relate to that. So, you've had lots of challenges. You're an entrepreneur and you've done lots of things. What's been the most significant challenge you've had, and how have you overcome that?
That's an interesting one. I've got four answers for that,
Okay, great.
which
Go
is
for it.
which is it's one of those tricky ones because there's different kinds of challenges, and that's why I find it a hard answer, or a hard to pick on a single one. So being sued by my ex-business partner in the US was probably the biggest personal challenge, because it was
Okay.
incredibly stressful,
Yeah.
and it was a process that went on for 2 or 3 years until it finally ended the way it should. But just the ongoing stress of being sued by somebody was quite unenjoyable. I think the acquisition of Hyperion by Oracle was pretty stressful for me, and that's because I have a reasonable history in the IT world. So I'd actually seen a number of Oracle acquisitions before,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you kind of know what's going to happen before it's going to happen. And everybody in Hyperion was convinced that they would be able to have the fire sale that they had in 2017, I believe it
Mm,
was. But anyway, have the fire sale on licensing that they'd have, and still manage to produce the results that they needed to in the first year of operation, and underneath the Oracle banner. And of course, that didn't happen. And that acquisition period was tricky, just because Hyperion themselves, of course, whilst they sold a lot of licensing, a lot of it was shelfware. So a lot of companies just turned around and bought additional licensing, but it meant that there was not going to be any new sales going on for a while. And on top of that, the following year post acquisition, because they couldn't make any license sales anymore, they suddenly started focusing quite heavily on consulting, and effectively gutting what was the partner network at the time. So that was pretty tricky. I think the next most significant challenge was Oracle announcing EPM Cloud before it was ready.
yeah.
I don't mean to be
Uh,
funny, but again,
Interesting. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it was one of those things that when you're trying to maintain the customer base and the relationships with customers, and the product itself isn't doing what you want it to be doing, or not as competent as it should be, and the marketing where is better than the actual software, then
Mm,
life's a bit tricky. So I found that quite challenging.
yeah.
And finally, actually convincing Sukaba, when they came on board and became part of Inlumi, to adopt OneStream, was
Wow.
actually pretty
Interesting.
challenging as
That's very
well.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So those are my big challenges from
Fantastic.
an EPM perspective.
Cool. Cool. And you've been very successful in what you've done. What would you say is your most notable success story or success event in your career? Sorry.
Yeah, it's actually less exciting than you might imagine.
Okay. Okay.
So look, when you look back on the business and you turn around and say, I'm really, really happy, obviously, and the success story, if you like, was building the company and attracting the people that we attracted to work for us over the 20 years. That was really the success story. But if you talk about individually, then my most recent memory, let's say, of an EPM success story was a local customer here in Australia, a company by
Yeah.
the name of Wesfarmers, who are proper conglomerate, let's say. So they have businesses in all kinds of different areas. And it was a great success story for the most pathetic of reasons, to be perfectly honest. So when I went in there, they'd been trying to copy applications from their production environment to their test development environment for over 9 months without any success. And they'd had Oracle in, they'd had their local functional consultancy in, and a couple of other people in as well to try and get it going. And they were effectively working on their live production application and doing all of their changes in their live production application. And so when I went in and changed it from what it was doing, which was it was dying in 6 hours during the copy process, to actually taking 20 minutes and working successfly. They didn't believe it to start off with.
Mm, mm.
And then once they'd actually confirmed that the copy was successful, the head of reporting broke down in tears.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, the whole department was it was a very female department, which was
Right.
great, but they were very
Yes.
emotional about the fact that living on their nerves, as it were, because it's a big corporation, Wesfarmers, and they'd literally
Yeah.
had to make changes in the production application constantly
Wow.
for the last 9 months, and
Yeah.
they were stressed beyond belief. And so when finally they could work in a different environment, they were so happy. And you know, it's those little victories that actually buoy you up and keep you going.
Fantastic, fantastic. What aspect of what you do you find most rewarding? I mean, we all have our own self moments and stuff like. What do you find? What aspect you do that makes you feel good?
Personally, it's actually fixing the unfixable. So for me, it was the most rewarding part was always when I went somewhere like Wesfarmers, where everybody else had tried to do something and couldn't, and then I could snap my fingers, as it were, and get a good result. Professionally, it was actually just, you know, hiring really good people and
Yeah,
building that culture of respect and professionalism, and being able to have a company where we could really say, you know, customers really do come first, and mean it. That was my best.
fantastic. Another quirky question. Have you got any comical moments in your career such you can share with us? Or any funny moments that stand out?
Um, I have, but I have to be dubious. I have to obfuscate the companies involved for
Okay,
obvious
sure,
reasons.
sure.
I think the weirdest moment that I ever had, or funny unforeseen moment that I had, was with an international services company. And I went to do a design session with them. And this was following. So what had actually happened is they'd had a failure um, of their financial reporting environment, um, principally due to the platform and the way that it had been implemented in their IT environment, that wasn't particularly good. And so they'd ask us to come in and do a environment review and to come up with a design. And look, you know, I mean, by that time I'd done hundreds of designs for EPM environments, and so I was used to the normal process. The normal process is you turn around, design an environment, and you know that they're going to freak out about how much it's going to cost. So you
Mm.
design it a little bit bigger than it needs to be, and then you allow them to beat you down a little bit and get
Mm,
rid of trim a
mm,
little bit of fat off of the design,
yeah.
and then it's fine. And so I went into this design meeting, and I had and normally that's the thing is, in this meeting, there was the finance systems guy, and then there was their IT services provider. And so normally when I went to these meetings, the IT service provider was there going, oh, great, clusters and shared storage and all this kind of stuff. How much is that going to cost? And the customer's the one that's turning around and going, oh, yeah, no. Can we minimize this in any way, shape, or form?
Mm.
And I went into this meeting and I sat down, and I put in the design, which had 25 servers, and it was a massive design,
Wow. Yeah.
and that was just production.
Yeah.
And the customers there and going, great, yep, we'll have it. And the IT provider's going, oh, you know, do we really need to have a cluster here, or does it really
Mm.
need to be this, or does it really need to be that? And I'm like, this is completely reversed from what I'm used to seeing. And I was blown away. I just didn't understand what was going on. And then we got out of the meeting, and the customer turned around to me and he said to me, so what did you think of that?
Mm.
And I said, that was a little bit surreal, not the typical experience that I'm used to having. And I was going,
Sure.
what's the story? And he said,
Yeah.
well, they screwed up, the IT company screwed up the entire headquarters IT
Oh
environment,
no. Oh
and
no.
as part of the reparations, we told them that they needed to pay for, host, and manage the
Wow.
financial reporting system for the next 5 years. So
Wow.
any extras you can add in, please go ahead.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of weird.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So you're an entrepreneur and you've done various ventures. What motivates you to start new ventures, or what has motivated you in the past?
In the past, in the Inlumi days, it was actually all about a couple of things. It's servicing customers locally, so making sure that you've got local people who are culturally aware of the same environment that the customers operate in, and can speak the same language, which is invaluable.
Yeah.
Um, growing big enough and wide enough as a company to be able to offer natural 24/7 follow the sun support, because that was pretty important for a lot of the customers.
Sure.
Nowadays, it's just about keeping busy and doing good stuff for the planet, really.
Sure. Fantastic. So, we have a lot of people who follow us and who are inspired by success stories by you. Do you have any advice for people who want to follow a similar career to you, or something that you've done? A bit of
Uh,
few key advice.
yeah, I'd say don't follow me, because I probably did loads of things wrong.
Okay.
And I think following anybody is not necessarily the right way to go. What you need to do is always, you need to do what you love. So, you are going to spend a ridiculous amount of time doing whatever it is that you decide to do if you're going to start a business. So it better be something that you actually actively enjoy doing, not just something that makes you money. If it's
Sure.
just about the money, you just won't enjoy it.
No.
Um, Find the right people, and by that I mean you need to be finding people who aren't a mirror image of you, but who actually have strengths that match your weaknesses. You can't do everything when you get beyond a certain size, so you need to find people or providers that can do the things you can't do, or the things that you don't do well. And hire well. You need to make sure
Yeah.
that your employees really do fit into the team. If you don't, then number one, you should let them go if they don't fit into the team. But really, what it
Right.
comes down to, and it doesn't matter about race, religion, sex, whatever. There's no key formula, let's say, to having people come in. We had people with 27 different languages, pretty much every religion represented, every
Yes.
sexual orientation, every whatever. So it's not about conformity by any means, but it is about making sure that you've got a bunch of people in a room that respect each other. And if there isn't that respect, then you really can't work well as a team. So
Yeah.
that's really important. And I think the final point is be financially literate on a practical level. And it's bizarre we're talking about
Mm.
this in EPM,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I know
That's true.
I know people that are absolutely capable of turning around and putting together an incredible financial consolidation environment or planning environment, and yet when you turn around and give them the general ledger and try and make them understand that on a practical level, when you've won a project and you're starting to do work on it, all you're actually doing is accruing debt up until the point that somebody's actually paid a bill.
Sure.
That kind of practical financial knowledge and rigor in your own operations is incredibly important.
Fantastic. So, how did you keep track of events around your industry? There's a lot of things changing with the vendors, the competitors, all those other environments. What did you do in terms of just keeping track of them, or understanding what they're doing and things like that?
I mean, obviously, there's the typical things, which is vendor updates. You always keep on top of, so making sure that you attend any sessions that there are. I mean, that I used to run an event as well, Top Gun, every year,
Yeah.
um, and
It's very good.
and and that was great, because it meant that I established relationships with development, Oracle EPM development team, and that was really good to get the heads up on what was coming. I found more valuable than that, to be perfectly honest, actually keeping close to customers, and that's literally the customer advisory group that we started up, and making sure that once every quarter we would listen to our customers and what their problems were, and what they were thinking and feeling, because a lot of the time they'd also be looking at other products or new developments within the marketplace, and there were people that because they had the luxury of spending their entire working life
Yeah.
looking at what the changes in the marketplace were. So it was good to keep them on board and actually learn from them. And honestly, it's really your customers that will keep you up to date. So if you've got that happy blend between customers and getting good relationships with development within the software vendors that you're working with, then you're in a warm, happy place.
Fantastic. So, we just want to know, in a way, what are you doing now? What's your future plans? And a cheeky question: are you going to return to EPM?
No plans to return to EPM, and the only reason there's no plans, I mean, at the moment I'm on a 5-year exclusion anyway, so I can't return. I can't return to EPM anytime soon.
Sure.
But actually, yeah, at the moment I'm working with sustainable wastewater treatment. So I'm actually using algae, bacteria, and diatoms to eat dirty water and give us clean water and a whole bunch of other side products as well. So that's all about decarbonising wastewater treatment, which is something that needs to happen if we want to achieve net zero.
Wow.
From an EPM perspective, I think if I did get back into EPM, it would be more on the sustainability reporting side rather than financial reporting, because our process is carbon negative, and one of the big things that I've had to do is learn how to deal with ARENA, which is the Australian energy regulator, in order to actually register carbon projects and account for carbon projects, and understanding that whole thing was a new learning thing for me, but it's something that I can see there's still a big need with the GRI standards and other bits and pieces to actually get good sustainability reporting in place.
Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful chat to you. I'm sure it's going to be insightful and an inspiration for others. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and definitely want to talk to you in the future sometime. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for your time, Tim.
Have a great day.
You too.